Yeah, that's right. We are back for Nothing But Netflix to talk about season 2 of Outlast, full spoiler edition to talk about all 8 episodes of the Alaskan survival series. Here with a guy who there's nobody else that I would rather go up the mountain with and get to the end. It's Chappell. Chappell, how are you?
Rob, I'm blown away by another great season of Outlast. I think, it didn't have the same excitement that
Yeah.
Outlast season 1 had in moments, but I still thoroughly enjoyed this show. I
Yeah.
think that Netflix has a good thing here.
Okay, we'll see if they do more Outlast. It was definitely a different season. Let's give it a minute or two before we do full spoilers on all 8 episodes. But we watched the season premiere. If you're here and you're like, wait, what's this? Okay, we watched just the premiere last week. I believe we talked about that last Saturday, and we talked about just one episode. And it was a big cliffhanger to end episode number 1, where a big incident happened. Then we are now talking about episodes 2 through 8, including the finale. Episodes 1 through 6 were part of the first drop, and then they dropped the final 2 this week. We'll talk about it all here on Nothing But Netflix. How are you, Chappell?
I'm good. Like I said, I enjoyed watching the show. I sat through, I went and watched the first one again just to kind of get back in the mode because I took a few days between watching.
You watched the first episode again, not the first
episode.
season.
Yeah, not the first season. The first season was a journey, and I remember it pretty vividly. But the one thing I've learned in this week watching Outlast that from episode to episode, so many things can change, and so I enjoyed the ride. I'm feeling good.
Yeah, it was a different type of season. I feel like that in season 1. I feel like that there were more people who were outwardly playing and behaving badly. Like there was a lot more of except for Jill.
She was the one, is what I'm saying. She was the only one.
No, there was more. I don't feel right saying it was just Jill. But there was there was more. Jill, if you're watching, that's just
she knows what she did. She knows we love her here.
But I feel like that there was more of how do we force the issue to get people out of the game? And I feel like in this season, there was exactly one person who was going to sort of came in with that attitude about the game. And that was Bio. And then everybody else, I feel like, was a little bit more about minding their own business.
Well, that's the Delta tribe's complete mantra, is that we just gonna do our own thing, mind our own business. We're not really gonna deal with everybody else. I think that the thing that happened that caught people off guard, and I think that's very interesting about Outlast, is that as much as you want to be in this game, as much as you want to be in the show, sometimes your body's just not gonna allow you to. Yeah. And I think a lot of these people were just decimated by once you're down a person, it's just so easy to spiral. It takes one accident, one, person getting sick or something like that to really just set the wheels in motion for your whole camp to be decimated. And so I don't think they had any chance to really try to get the upper leg on people. I mean, they attempted to. It's just that other things would hop in the way. We saw the boat gate, when they're trying to get the boat on the raft and stuff like that. Like those were moves that were supposed to weaken the other moves. But because they couldn't pull them off due to the incredible terrain and these people's health, we never actually got to see a lot of that stuff come to fruition.
Chappell, did you get a idea of how many days this one went?
Yeah, this was 32 days. Because I think at day 30, I want to say they got the 48-hour kind of letter.
And I feel like the last one was longer. Is this the new era of Outlast?
I felt like the last one was longer too. But I think for the last one, I think when you had Jill and Amber, I believe it was, they had come down to they were the last 2 on their tribe, and they were really just outlasting, really just trying to get day to day. I think at some point you say, okay, let's just start the race. Whereas this time you had this tribe that's basically thriving. The Delta camp was fine. We saw the Bravo camp had ended up in a situation where they were fine. And so it's what do we do? We just do just wait every day while they go out and eat squirrel for the next month. It's okay, let them race. And so I think they might have pushed the issue a little bit faster to get some drama, because Delta was not going to leave that camp. They could have stayed there another month.
They could have stayed there. Yeah, they were in it for the long haul. So Chappell, I finished watching this morning to get ready for the podcast here with you. And then I went online and I saw people are not happy about the outcome of Outlast season 2.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. I honestly,
From what I saw a lot of reaction that unhappy that the winning team, congratulations to Drew and Drake. People either love the Drake or they hate the Drake.
the Texas
And
boys.
yeah, the Texas guys won it in a foot
Yeah,
race. And I think that a
yeah.
lot of people were disappointed that Team Delta didn't win.
I can see why they would be disappointed. People were very happy to see Jill and Amber lose last time in the final stretch. But I think that when it came down to Delta and versus Drew and Drake, I think that Delta had such like a more feel good story, right? We're with them the whole time. We're watching their trials and tribulations where they're battling with leadership issues. They got these people who are not great for the tribe, but they're forgiving them anyway. Then they bring in somebody new despite not wanting to bring him in. And he turns out to be a little scummy and they still forgive him. It's like they were doing all the good Christian things to do. It felt like this is the type of camp that if I was out in the wilderness and I came across these people, I would be fine. They're going to fight, but they'll get over it. They're going to come to a conclusion. They're very steadfast in their beliefs.
Yeah.
They seem like a great place to be. But then you had Drake and Drew over Bravo, and these two knuckleheads have been like annoying people throughout the season. Like, oh, it's like a locker room talk, it's a boys' camp, that kind of thing. And I think it's just harder to root for them. Personally, I'm a Texas boy. It was not hard for me to root for them at all. I was very happy that they did a good job and that they finished. But I can see why people would say the better story is probably Delta winning.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I didn't come away with it of that, oh my God, like I'm so mad that it was Team Bravo that ended up winning. I was like a little surprised that it was like 90-10 what I saw online was people who were unhappy because I really thought that it was, wow, and what a graceful defeat for the Delta camp in this one. I thought it was like really well done, very powerful. The whole struggle that and the refusal to throw away one of their own, which conversely, Team Bravo was needed to do to ultimately they had their own Tina in Sammy, who they ultimately. And I think that we can get into this of like, was this like a Brandon Hance-esque, like, oh, you really need to, give up the immunity necklace here and take one for the team?
Yeah, I think that might be some of the reason why they're getting pushed back too. We saw that when the Bravo team looks around, they see Sammy, who has been for the last couple of days, as depicted on the show, for the last couple of days has not been himself. Sammy throughout had been pretty like steady. We hadn't seen a lot of drama from Sammy. He was just there. He was a member of the camp. And so by the end, he's like, I'm losing a step. I can barely stand up. My legs are giving away on me. And they start thinking, okay, this is a foot race. Do we need somebody who might not be able to make it? Maybe we need to ask him to leave. And so they go to him and they present it as if, I'm concerned about your health. And to their credit, he had been concerned about his health too. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like this came out of nowhere. Like, it didn't feel like to me like they were gaslighting him. And I think that that's probably kind of how it might have come off to some people. Like, they came and like, oh, you're not looking so good. Like, ooh, you got a fever there. Don't you want to shoot that flare off so that we can go and win the money? And it felt like maybe there might have been a little bit to that. But I really do think that they looked at him and said, you're not going to make it, kid. And there's no point in us all losing when you're not going to make it deep down. So I think that's probably why they're getting a little pushback online. But personally, I don't know. I just felt like the feel-good story was on Delta, and that if Delta had won, nobody would be complaining.
Yeah. Nobody would have been complaining because I feel like, Chappell, I know you cover all these Walking Dead spinoffs. I'm ready for Mountain Man and Joseph to go off and get their own show. I'm there. I'll watch it. But as far as Drew and Drake go, that I was watching some TikToks, and one in particular was saying that did Drew and Drake mislead Sammy in any way about what was going to come next? Did Sammy have all of the information about what was going to come next in the competition?
What did they know that Sammy allegedly did not know?
Did they have the information about that they had 48 hours to move? And did they, because admittedly, I was not paying this did not was not something that I saw myself as I was watching episode 7, but that there was a video I watched that said that they knew about the trek. They did not necessarily know. Sammy didn't necessarily have all that information, and that that they made Sammy feel like he was maybe holding back the team in that they were going to be out there for longer.
Oh, like you're not gonna make it a few more days. I don't know. I didn't pick that up. To me, it felt like they were coming to him and saying,
Let me
"We gotta
know,
make a
chat,
decision."
if you got that.
Yeah, because to me, it like whether he knows about the trek or not. Sammy, as far as we were presented, now what happened out there, we get an edited version of that. So if you're listening to this, Sammy, no disrespect to you, but the last episode and a half, we get Sammy can't walk. Sammy used to be on point, but now it's not working. Now Sammy's back at the camp all day while we're going to the boat. To them, if I'm in their shoes, I'm like, we're doing all the work, and now we're gonna have to drag Sammy across the finish line, and we could lose. This is a race, and so yeah, to me, it doesn't bother me that they go to Sammy and say, Sammy, I think you got to tap out for this one. Now, Sammy does go, I don't know, y'all, I'm feeling good. But who would want to remove themselves at that point in the game, right? Whether he felt good or not, we've seen people getting medevac from games, including this one, where they're still telling us at home in the camera, I just feel like they could leave me out here. Just don't take me away. Even though we're watching them deteriorate. I felt like if anybody was gaslighting anyone, it was Sammy. He was gaslighting himself to believe that he was probably
he couldn't have done it. And so... Yeah, I'm reading a recap also from this is from Sportskedia is the website, and they say that Drew and Drake read the message. However, they hid the message from their teammate Sammy. They told him that they were worried about his health and it would be better for him to flare out.
I mean, again,
thinking that his teammates were looking out for him and his health, Sammy flared out and exited the game.
With or without the message, I think the decision is still the same.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like maybe if they show him the message and say, Sammy, we got the next day is the race. Sammy says, I'm good. I can try it. And maybe that's why they hide it from him, right? They don't want him to be like, all I gotta do is push through 2 more days, and then we make it to the next level.
Chappell, I mean, I feel like that's kind of what happened over with Delta, where and they did not want Tina to go. Nobody on Delta was saying let's convince Tina to drop out, but Tina was I'm gonna tough it out. I don't want to give up. I'm this close to the end. Where Drew and Drake seemed like that their fear was that Sammy was going to say, "All right, I'm gonna tough it out."
Yeah, that is the worst case scenario for them, because yes, he might be able to tough it out, but based on what they've seen, or at least what we were shown, he ain't gonna make it. He can stay until he blue in the face. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it. But they know that they just paddled across that lake to get to that or across that river to get to that island, and they had to do it without him because he cannot do it. They're literally saying, Sammy, just rest all day because you can't move like we moving like now. And their whole thing is that we're athletic, we're young, we have better bodies. Very Heidi from Survivor Amazon. And so they're like, that's our strength, and you're going to weigh us down. And I think if Sammy did not agree, he wouldn't have quit. I think he would have been like, well, y'all going to have to vote. He wouldn't have let them vote him out. I think he would have put up a bigger fight. It just kind of felt like he was like, I don't know, man. I came this far. I think I'm all right. I think I can shake it off, but I don't think it's certain enough. I think for $500,000, you got to make a decision.
There's plenty of details that we still need to go through, but I would just love to hear from you. Like, what do you think that the message of Outlast is? Like, do you feel like that there's a theme of this show, that one that a story the producers are trying to tell?
Well, I thought about this actually, because I was thinking throughout, like, is this the story? Is this a game that's going to be defined by the gamer, right? The person like Joey, who will go out his way, like, I need to get an edge on the competition. I need to figure out what the other competition's doing. I need to go and see what they got a raft. We need to build a raft. Like, I thought for a second that's where we were going, but to me, honestly, it feels like no. I think if you are more prepared, you will probably do better. And I think that for this show, people are going out there with a certain set of skills. But the people who are the most well-rounded as far as skill sets, they do fine. The reason why the Delta camp was fine was because they had enough people that they could put their heads together and get stuff done. And like, they picked the right team. I think we saw other camps that were fine, where the fire is up and they're good. But if you get to like the Charlie camp and they don't have a fire, what are we doing here? why did you come out on Outlast if you couldn't confidently build a fire in the Alaskan wilderness? It's not asking a lot, you know. But for first grade math here, build a fire in the Alaskan wilderness should be the first thing you learn in Outlast. And I think that that's one of the things. Another thing is when you desert your team, you are taking away a mouth to feed, but you're also taking away a set of skills. You know, there's more work to be divvied up. And so I think there is something about being able to say, no, this is a team that works. We establish a dynamic that works, a leadership hierarchy, and we have the skill sets that are well-rounded enough for us to survive. I think that's the thing. Like, sure, there's some gaming to be done, but none of that matters if you get medevac.
Yeah. It's interesting. And then I think we were disappointed last season too with the ending of this, where I felt like that last season that they ended up going to the race because it seems like, okay, both of these teams are pretty locked in. Nobody's going to flare out of this thing. And okay, we have to settle the stalemate. And the way we'll settle the stalemate is the race. This season, it felt like that had this gone on, like I did not feel like that this was in stalemate. I feel like that had this gone on in another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I feel like that eventually Drake and Drew would have, and potentially Drew would have tapped out, leaving Drake without a team. They would have been gone. And then it would have been a win from the Delta team. And the race was ultimately the thing that decided it in favor of Bravo team.
Oh no! See, I got the other feeling. I felt like this was the stalemate because I don't see Drew and Drake quitting. You know, like once Drew basically swims across that icy water to save that crate, that pallet slash well, I guess he was on the pallet, jumped off the pallet to go get in the boat or whatever. Once he does that, he ain't going nowhere. You know, if you survive the hypothermia, you ain't going nowhere. It's him and Drew. They've been to bunker down, and that's it. That's just gonna be the two of them. Now they had Sammy at that time too. But I didn't see like either of them wavering. Drew definitely I guess Drew was the one who wasn't wavering at all, or was it Drake? Who's the bigger guy?
Drake was the bigger guy.
Yeah, Drake is the one who's not wavering at all.
No.
But I think once him and Drew kind of make that like it's me and you to the end, I don't think Drew's going anywhere. I think at this point, at best, you probably would have seen maybe like Tina couldn't poop. So maybe that would have gotten her out of the game. They didn't really love.
She did.
Yeah, she eventually did it. That root T came and saved her and Joseph.
Okay.
I don't think you need to write that down. I think we have real medicine here that we could just use. You don't have to go dig up anything. Well, I don't want you to pick the wrong thing. So I think it was a stalemate. I think it got to the point where it's like, okay, we might as well race it out. And maybe that's what they're waiting on. They're waiting on the camps to get stable enough to where we say, all right, they can do this for a while. They're going to live off squirrel for a while. They don't have any issue with this. Nobody's getting sick. Let's make them race it out. And so I wasn't surprised by the ending at all.
And then I thought that maybe Drake and Drew were going to get lost and that it was going to be, okay, that it's a little bit like tortoise and the hare. They were fast, but if you're fast, it's more important to be in the right direction than to be fast. And so they were moving fast, but they were like going in circles. Whereas, okay, here comes Delta and they're going slow, but they know where they're going.
Well, Delta was going fast for a second because Mountain Man Brendan was like, all right, I got a bad knee, a hip replacement, a fake ankle, and I got cartilage, and like there's no cartilage in my leg and all this other stuff, but I'm gonna go as fast as possible. And there it got to the point where Tina can't keep up. And so she basically gasses herself out trying to keep up with Brendan. Now, had they gone in their slow and steady pace, maybe they have a different outcome. Maybe they don't have to pause and break as much for Tina. Maybe that doesn't slow them down. But based on what we saw, the amount of energy she exerted just trying to keep up with Brendan was enough to slow them down to where when Drew and Drake get lost, they're able to reconnect to the course 2 or 3 times. And like, oh yeah, no, we got to turn back around. We got to turn back around again. I mean, they're like a buddy cop comedy at this point. You know, he's carrying them across the water and all kinds of stuff. There was nothing going to stop them from beating the Delta team.
Yeah. And it really just seemed like that, okay, between Mountain Man and Joseph, they talked about, what the money was for. It just seemed like that they had the winner edit a little bit more on this thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Everything we had saw, and I think it's just because we watch a lot of reality TV, right? So we know that the person getting like the positive content is probably who we need to look out for. Drew and Drake, they never really got a lot of positive content. They got neutral content at best. But at worst, they were getting called like the locker room. Oh, look at these boys. They're making these comments. They do look like they're not really giving a lot of attention to Emily. So maybe they don't care too much about her and her voice as a woman. Like it sounds like they might be like kind of talking over her and stuff like that at times. So you're seeing all these negative attributes of these two people, and then they go on to win. They might feel like, hey, that doesn't deserve, like, y'all don't deserve that. But to that, I say, no, I think that's who they are, and they were always going to be that. And when you put them in the wilderness, they're going to show you why they can, like, this is their element, Whereas, like the Delta team had some cool stories and stuff like that, but they definitely had some downsides. They had Eric, who was not really meshing with their camp at all, but they welcomed Eric back in. Instead of trying to banish him and vote him out, they welcomed him in. When Joey shows up, hat in hand, nowhere to go, they let him in. When he tries to defect, they let him back in, and so they were handling things like you would want to see people handling this kind of situation, but they just didn't have the firepower to get themselves across the finish line, because that's not what the show is about. The show is about the race at the end.
This was an interesting season of Outlast, where we ended up sort of like having these, like, the two sides of the riverbed, and then ultimately that they sort of like consolidated into, like, we had basically like two tribes or two teams with 5, and then we had then still what was left of Alpha team. And I was like, oh, this is like intentional Matt Singh. I mean, watch this. What's left of Alpha? This is going to be the Malcolm and Denise. They're going to go all the way. Did not play out that way.
Well, that's the thing. Malcolm and Denise work because they're Malcolm and Denise. Malcolm and Denise are going to go long into any Survivor season. For any, as long as JT ain't there, they're good for the merge, the jury, all the way to the end. Mm-hmm. But this is not them. This is Tanya. And Tanya is a little bit older.
Tanya and Trey.
Tanya and Trey, right? Trey and Tanya had the spirit of somebody we want to see stick it out. But at some point, her body just wasn't able to keep up. She got really sick. She passed out, completely unconscious. Now, that was something that I wasn't prepared for. I actually thought that was a very scary part of the entire show, was that she loses consciousness in her sleep. And at that point, Trey's like waking her up, and then she like completely is like non-responsive. At that point, I'm thinking, if I'm Trey, I don't even want to stay out there, because what if that happens to me? If I pass out, who's like coming to make sure I'm breathing, So I thought, like, that's where you really start to see, oh, this isn't Survivor. This is surviving.
Well, going back through over the course of the season, so Alpha Team was who we talked about a lot last time when we got together, and we had sort of the cliffhanger about Bio and how he went through. And ironically, it was, Drew and Drake, that he just took their stuff, and it's like, it's mine now. Okay, I'm walking off with it. And a little bit of like a different perception of those guys from where we were at the first episode. Interestingly, Trey and Zach are sort of leading the charge. Like, hey, we're not playing that way. We don't want to be a part of this.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Zach, he takes a stand. Like, we're not doing that. And Alpha Camp, they're like, all right, cool. That's the stance we're going to take. And so they go and they make this alliance with Bravo, right? And because Bravo is saying, all right, look, this dirty thing just happened. Now you can win yourself back into our good graces, but you got to vote out Bio. We can't have Bio in the camp anymore. So if you get rid of Bio, you got an alliance in us. And they do. They get rid of Bio. But we never see Bravo go back ever and check on this alliance that they have. One down,
That's
one person.
That's what Trey said. They never checked on us.
They never checked on them. You said get rid of him.
Check on us.
You said you'd follow up, and you didn't. And so,
you said you would check.
They lose Bio very quickly. Then when Zach gets hurt, that's when they're like, okay, where's Bravo? Because at this point, we're on our last leg, and nobody has come to check on us.
Yeah. So going back to the whole Bio situation, was it Drew and Drake said, like, hey, we'll forgive you guys, but Bio has to flare out of the game?
Yeah, they say we need you to vote because I think
that was a mistake for Alpha Team. They should not have let Bio go.
No, nobody should be letting anybody go. Like, that's the thing. You should not be voting people out of your camp if you can avoid it. That is, if there's anything we've learned, keep as many people in your camp as possible. because no one's going to eat you out of house and home because there's not a lot of food anyway, right? Like if at best they're going to go find some snails or something like that, eat them, and they're not going to tell you about it. But you're not really gonna. There's not really a detriment from having an extra person. If anything, you have another hand on deck to make sure the fire is still going. Make sure like somebody can go fish. Who knows what you might find to like or forage from the wilderness. So getting rid of Bio was definitely a mistake because now once they get rid of him, there's more work on all of them. We see Zach gets injured, then Zach's gone. And once Zach leaves, I think Bravo didn't even know Zach was gone. They had no clue that it was Zach who left. At least they said it. They were like, what? We had no, what? Y'all signed off a flare? Who knew? And so now they're down 2 people and nobody has come and checked on them. So I think, yeah, that's the first mistake. If anything, that's good on Bravo for putting their foot down and making sure Bio didn't act in the game. But to be fair, Trey brought it up. He goes to them and says, we didn't support that. We're about to vote him out. Zach had already decided they were going to vote out Bio. This was on Alpha Team. They shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah. And when Zach ends up getting that injury, that ends up being a big factor there because then basically, there was some potential there with Zach and with Trey. And who knows, like, how that would have shook out, like, had Zach been able to stay in the game.
Yeah. I mean, Tanya might still get sick, maybe. But at the end of the day, we didn't really see any sign of, like, quit from Trey. So if Zach isn't going to quit and Trey isn't going to quit, I think it might be a 3-way race at the end.
Yeah, they needed Bio though because Zach, we know that he couldn't even shoot a squirrel. Bio.
Bio was a loose cannon though. You can't. Honestly, I know I just said you shouldn't be voting people out, but when you say you needed this man, he really went over there and made an enemy for no reason. And I think one of the things they were asking was, okay, what was your big plan? Was it just to bully them and then just be like, all right, cool? Like he essentially wanted to start a war because nobody out here on this Outlast cast is going to allow you to steal from them and just lay down and just take it. Somebody is going to retaliate, and now we got to fight each other when we should be trying to survive into this race.
Yeah. Okay. So Chappell, you're on Outlast season 3. Okay. You go into the draft. You're going into the draft. Okay. What are you looking for in people that you want to have on your team? Like what's the most valuable skill sets?
I honestly, I don't even know if it's a skill set that you're looking for or like a character type. Like I think you need to be trying to assess who is going to be living with you. Because I think that even with lack of skills, if you can come together and figure out a situation that works, first of all, you need to find out if anybody can make a fire. First things first, can you make a fire? Sure. Raise your hand. If you can make a fire, I'm holding that to you. If we lose, it's on your back. Because why don't we have a fire? I think that's the most important thing that you can have in this game, period. From there, I think our personalities really matter. I think because we saw people who just don't mesh well with their camp go and do fine at other people's camps.
Yeah. I did not recall exactly who the winners were of Outlast season 1, but Nick, Paul, and Seth. Okay. Three guys. Three guys were the winners of season 1. 2 more guys. No woman has ever been a part of the winning team of Outlast yet.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it is a race to the finish, and with Jill and Amber, they made it to the finish. They just didn't win the race.
Yes,
and so
they did not win the race.
Yeah, there's like several people can make it to the end, but there can only be one team of winners. And I think that not to characterize these people too much, but a lot of times this is like a underrepresented space for women.
Sure, it's not equal. It's not 8-8. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then these guys are probably thinking when I'm drafting people like, oh yeah, we probably just need a woman on our tribe. We'll see that like at some point, Bree and Emily link up and that immediately changes Emily's whole experience. She's like, oh, thank God, just to have somebody else here who's not these guys. It's just like, just another woman here. We ain't even got to get along that well. I just need the presence of someone else. So I think it's a lot harder for women probably just to even like socially
no doubt
a game like this.
I'm just trying to put my finger on exactly like what have been the skill sets from that have been successful over the course of the 2 seasons. And I feel like that the number one thing I feel like you need, and I don't know, and maybe it's like you think about like, okay, well, is there somebody that will feed us? But we have to get rid of them by the time. So we see like people who are, okay, I know how to hunt. Does it matter if they are, a physical asset in terms of like, can they win the race?
Yeah, and I think being able to hunt is better. I don't think you should be preparing for the race. I don't think that should be the thing.
Don't even think about it.
Yeah, because who knows what's going to happen in the next 30 days? You know, we've seen Zach is one of the most fit people. I believe he was an MMA fighter. Zach goes out 3 weeks in, right? But you see Tina, who is a model, as they say, a model from California, she makes it all the way through the race, you know? And so it does, I don't think the like the physicality
hold them back at the end.
Yeah, she did. But I mean, some would argue that was Brendan's fault, you know? And so I think that there is something to say about like, you need to get to the race. I think if you can get to because you never know what you're going to be up against either, right? Like if you get to the race and you got these like if then you can go and will yourself through it. They lost, but they didn't seemingly lose by much, you know. So I think the goal is to outlast. That is the main goal. And then if you can make it that far, God bless you. Take off running.
Okay.
You know what I have taken away from this? Never get in the water.
Don't go in the water.
If you can avoid it, never get in the water. If you can avoid it, don't get in the water. Don't get any harebrained schemes about, I wonder what's across the way. Unless you see a helicopter drop something, you have no business over there. Don't go. Don't exert any energy that you don't need to exert because Emily really did end her own game.
She did. That was wild. So Emily says, you know what? I gotta, and maybe it was like I've been with these guys for a couple of weeks now. Yes. I gotta get. That Emily needs a day out. Emily needs away from the three guys, and so she's like, I'm going over there. And it seemed like an ill-timed adventure for her. I think that they said she left at like 1:20 in the afternoon. She had like 4 hours to go there and get back.
Yeah. And all she had was a raft. And they all knew the current was going to come in and the tide was going to come in and it was going to get dark. So she was racing against time and nature. And she just needed to get away from them. She was like, I can't do this anymore. I think she was tired of being silenced. Like all her ideas were falling on deaf ears. And she had a plan. And she's like, I just need to execute this for me. And so she goes out there and does it. But when she comes back, she's like, I saw there were crab apples over there. And I found some shrimp traps. Like that was not worth it. That was not worth.
The shrimp traps would have been huge if she could have got back with them.
Well, they only dropped some from the helicopter a day later.
Right. So do you feel like that? Could they have said to Emily, "Hey, Emily, why'd you wake up tomorrow? Wake up at sunrise, and then you have the whole day to do this."
I think she'd already decided what was done was done. Because I think even there's a point where Drake is like, you know, I'm not as bad. I'm pretty good on the water. I think I could be doing it, but he's like, but I also know it's better than to try to say like I'm a man, so I'm gonna step in. Like I think at some point they were like, Emily got to do what they got to do. But to me, they weren't listening to Emily anyway. Because every time Emily would say stuff to us, we were like, oh, okay, this sounds about right. That makes sense. But then when it would finally get to the guys 3 episodes later, they're like, yep, Emily just woke up all of a sudden and decided she wanted to make. I was like, she's been talking about this all week. Why are y'all just not noticing? Like, yeah, for some reason, Emily just got this idea about wanting food now. Where did that come from? They weren't listening to nothing she was saying anyway.
So they said something about, the boat was going to be something that was going to be able to unlock other areas of the game board. Like, do you think that, like, we're there? And we saw Emily goes to the island. She finds these shrimp traps. Like, does the production want them to be out exploring more? And are there more resources available for them that the show has hidden that if they would go out and forage a little bit more, they might be able to find?
Finding those shrimp traps didn't feel like a coincidence, you know? So it did feel like that was there for a reason. The crates with the the make it float with the buoys on them, it was like Emily knew immediately, like there's something here, there's a puzzle or something we got to be doing, there's a reason why we got to make this thing float. She just really jumped the gun as far as like what she should have been using it for. She was immediately like, we got a new toy, we got to play with it. But like again, had she waited 2 days, then they dropped the boat down and now she knows exactly what she would have been able to do. But I don't think they're against the exploring. I think that you want people trying things adventurous. That's why you pick these people. Because if you tell them, okay, just create a camp and sleep, it's not that good of a show. But if you got people like Emily who want to try different things, you got, who was it, Brendan, who will go out and hunt porcupines and stuff like that. I think that those are the kind of characters you want for the show. And they're probably going to try to incentivize people more to go across the water and even to do some cross camp mingling. I would love if they were doing a lot more interacting between the two. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to talk about Emily and then how we get Bree involved. Okay. So Bree is part of what? Courtney Yates?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Courtney Yates. She was giving me that vibe the entire time. Her entire camp is stupid. I hate them all. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I like her.
Well, she left her camp. She ghosted them.
Very Courtney.
She was part of what, Team Charlie, right?
Yeah.
With Julio, and she's like, okay, this is a sinking ship. I'm out of here. She wakes up one morning and just ghosts them and doesn't even go to the other camp, which is on her shore, right?
Delta.
I think the Delta was on her shore. She's like, I'm gonna walk all the way around, and she ends up showing up at Bravo. And she shows up at Bravo, hat in hand, says, I'd like to join your team. And the guys are like, no, I don't think so.
Well, they said we don't want to split the money 5 ways. We'd already decided. And I think you and I were asking, like, how many people can you have on a team? Well, we know they can have 5.
Yeah, we didn't know from last season. No, I don't think anybody ever had 5 people on a team. Like, you have to lose a person to get a person, but you are allowed to have 5 people on a team. And so she ends up getting a foot in the door with Emily, who says, look, let's let her stay overnight.
Yeah, I thought what they were going to do was tell her, okay, you can stay overnight and then you can start walking to Alpha Camp. But eventually they wake up the next morning and they're like, no, I think it's good. You can stay. And I thought that was pretty cool of them. But Alpha will at that point lose Zach, I think. And we saw Charlie really celebrating because the Charlie camp thought this was Bree. They thought Bree had left them high and dry and then gone off to failure. But no, she went off and she thrived a little bit on the Bravo camp.
And Bree was able to use her social game. She was able to ingratiate herself, particularly seemingly to Drew.
Yeah. Emily was like her foot in the door. And then when Drew woke up the next day, he said, okay.
I've been thinking about it. Yeah.
I've been thinking about it. Yeah. She did mention cuddling as well. That probably didn't hurt. But I think that, she was saying, oh, well, there flew. I think there's like a flare came from the Bravo camp or something like that, or her old camp, Charlie. And she was talking about like, oh yeah, they couldn't get any fire going. They weren't good at this. They weren't good at that. I was like, well, Bree, you didn't do them any favors by leaving. By leaving, you made things exponentially worse. And I thought that's where the takeaway I get is that you don't want to lose anybody from your camp. Not a lot of you can avoid it. Because every hand helps, even if it's somebody like Bree who doesn't seemingly help. She helped Bravo a lot.
Right. And these things like tend to spiral. It's like, okay, you lose a person and then like everything gets harder. Everybody is weaker, once like it ends up being sort of like that. Oh, I have a tummy ache. It's like, here we go. Like typically this ends poorly. But for Brie, I kind of thought we were going to get a showmance for a second.
Oh no, not even for a split second did it even cross my mind. It was like, I was just like, all right, Bree. I honestly was waiting on Bree to maybe be a little bit more self-interested, but she really did make home at Bravo.
Kind of thought that like, here comes Bree. She's gonna be like the Yoko Ono of the Bravo camp. Yeah, she's like, the guy now. All the guy, Sammy is like, I don't know about this new woman coming in here. It did not happen. That is not the direction it went.
No. Bree stuck it out for a little bit longer. Eventually, she will also have to go because it's just this hard out here, And so
once Emily left, I think she was like, I don't think my heart's in it.
Yeah, and Emily, like I said, Emily Conda was her own demise, just wanting to so desperately have this move that she did to go explore that island and stuff like that. It was a little terrifying watching her out there in the middle of that water because they're like, yep, she's gonna get swept off the sea if she doesn't call a helicopter. And she's paddling, she's not going anywhere. I just like watch it. Like Rob, you've been out in the wilderness, you've literally lived in the Amazon. Could you imagine just being stuck on a crate in the middle of like? Yeah, it's just like, what?
Yeah, the Emily story was so interesting because I don't think there was anybody in either season that had as much of like a self-contained, like, okay, I am perfectly healthy. I've decided I'm going to do a thing. And this one thing that I decided I need to do is ultimately the reason for my ultimate demise in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a wild risk to take. And like we've already outlined, she only had like 4 hours. And so I think that maybe, just maybe, we talk about the social game, but Drew and Drake and Sammy probably just weren't most fun to live with. And she's like, I just got to get out of here and do something.
Yeah. Why did Emily have so much of their stuff with her on this errand?
She thought she was gonna bring stuff back, so she had the dry bags and stuff. She was trying to collect things and bring it back. The problem is, one, those shrimp catchers really probably slowed her down. Like trying to get
Why
that
couldn't
across
she
the water.
leave them and then come back for them tomorrow? Like, hey, guys, great news. There's shrimp traps over there. Okay, so all we have to do is, all right, Drake, just go back and get the shrimp traps.
She comes back like, okay, y'all, good news. There's fish in the ocean. You know, I think I think that's probably how she felt. Like, I've been over here all day. I got to come back. I'm leaving her with something.
And I think come back with just the apples.
I don't know. I mean, people are like, you've been gone all day. That's all you did was come back with some apples. You could have got a
Hey,
squirrel.
I got apples and great news. I found a bunch of shrimp traps. Let's go tomorrow. We just got to send somebody over to go get them.
Yeah. Again, I think that she felt like she needed to come back with a win. You know, like I needed to come back with a real victory, and that wasn't good enough in her mind. I also think that you make a great point. That tomorrow, I mean, again, had she waited 2 days, I think they get the boat in 2 days. So it's not a sense of urgency. I think it was just like something that she needed to accomplish for herself. And you're right. I don't think we've seen anybody just kind of orchestrate their own demise in the game like she did. And maybe another part of it is that she couldn't even imagine paddling across that water again. You know, like
but she doesn't have to. It could go like tell Drake. Yeah, I put the things right there. Just go back across. I love
him on the end, but I couldn't get him across. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Chappell, let's talk about Joey. We haven't talked too much about Joey and his plight. He ends up being one of the people that ends up being left at Team Charlie after that. It was Julio and who was the other person? Megan, who end up leaving Team Charlie. Joey needs to go find another team. So much like Bree, he ends up off on his own, and he ends up going to the Delta camp. And he's looking for a home there. And so it doesn't look necessarily like it's going to work out, but eventually they say, okay, Joey, we will open up our home to you.
What do you think about Joey as a character?
Joey as a character was interesting because Joey was like quite a bit of a know-it-all. I felt like that Joey was like very smug about how, hey, and I felt like that in some ways, like, he was more of a Courtney Yates in that, hey, I'm the only person here who's smart. Everybody else is dumb. Nobody's listening to me. I'm the only person who's thinking about these things. And I guess my questions are like, would the Delta team have been better off to listen to Joey a bit more?
Well, I think it's tough because Joey comes over and he has this one little thing he can't let go. He's determined to find out what Bravo has going on.
They live rent-free in his head.
He won't let it go. I mean, every scene, even he starts saying it. He's like, yeah, I know I'm annoying as hell. Keep bringing up this Bravo thing, but I just can't let it go. I need to know what they're doing. I'm so competitive. So it's not even that he had insider scoop, that he knew something was going to happen. It just was a thing that he couldn't let go. So every time he brought it up, they're like, no, Joey, we don't want to do this. No, Joey, we don't want to do this. He's trying to ingratiate himself into the camp by hanging out with Eric, who he perceives as being in charge, when in fact, Eric is not that great socially either. So now Eric has an annoying tag along with him too. So I could see why they weren't listening to Joey. But he did. I mean, a broken clock is right twice a day, right? And he won when he saw Bravo carrying that crate. Because when he saw them building a raft. And then that's when he realized we need to build a raft too. So Joey was a gamer. And I think that there's room in this game for Joeys. I just don't think there's enough room. I think that you need more Joeys. You need more people willing to do these things. And with Joey being down in the numbers, needing a camp home, seeing the way to the finish line is maybe not with the camp that he ended up with, there was no room for him to go. Because at that point, 30 days in, no one's bringing in a Joey.
This was not a season of Joeys. I mean, this was like maybe Joey would have been more at home in season 1. But other than Bio, I mean, there was not really anybody else. And maybe, Drake and Drew, they were willing to, had they been able to take the other rowboat away from Delta team. But this was not really a season for the saboteurs, for the people who really wanted to play underhandedly.
At best, we saw Drake and Drew kind of going over and being like, we're strong. We're going to win. Don't y'all want to quit? And Delta being like, nah, we're good. Actually, you can go. Like it was just like they had this one feeble attempt that's real strategy. And like you said, the rowboat was another attempt that didn't pay off of just like, okay, we're gonna try to do something strategically. Joey's mind never really came off of that. And seeing Joey make his last ditch effort to jump ship.
Yeah.
I had such high hopes for Joey in that moment because I thought if you could pull this off, that'd be great. Now, I don't think you'll be able to pull it off, but at least if you could get back with a decent excuse, then I might respect you as a gamer. He comes back, he gets caught, and they say, Joey, why did you take the boat over there to Bravo? Were you trying to jump ship? Were you trying to leave us? He's like, nah, man, I went out there to fish and dang, it's fish in the ocean, man. It's fish out there, man.
Yeah, he said his butt hurt.
Yeah, my butt hurt, so I came back.
The boat was too not comfortable.
They're like, so you didn't set out no traps, you didn't catch nothing. No, just my butt started hurting, so I just came back. Eventually, like they break him down, but I saw the light going off. You're like, this is the person who in any other game I think would have made some moves. This is just a harder game to make moves in.
Yeah. We'll go back to when Joey goes over to Bravo, and he's talking to Drake and he's talking to Drew. What'd you think about his offer? Like, do you think that he could have pitched himself in a different way, where he's sort of like, hey, like, you guys, somebody could get hurt, and then the other one's not going to get the money. You need two people to finish, and so I'm ready to go.
I think you have to start bringing stuff when you go to these other camps. Like, you have to come in with gifts. Like, hey, y'all look hungry. I got this squirrel. What can that buy me? Like he comes in like, you're gonna need an extra person, and they're thinking, you're probably right, but at the same time, we could bet on ourselves. And who's to say you don't get hurt? And now we done brought you in for no reason, and you're the reason that slows us down. We trust each other. We don't know you, and you're not being very trustworthy either. You could be trying to sabotage us. Who's to say you don't come over here, take our stuff, and then go? We've seen underhanded thing. Bravo has seen underhanded play already. They've met Bio, so they know it's possible to get snaked like this.
So the thing that I thought that Joey had to bring to the table, and it doesn't really come up because we see Mountain Man is like the person that's holding the map, but allegedly they said that it was Joey and Tina were the best map readers, and Drew and Drake didn't have that person. They didn't have a great navigator. And I wonder if he could have pitched himself, and he doesn't know what they don't have, but if he could have presented himself as like, hey, listen, maps, that's my thing. I'm going to, between like with our speed and my map reading, like we're going to get there. Like I'm telling you, these people, they're slow, but they're steady.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Drew and Drake had already decided like, I mean, you might be good at maps, but how much better could you possibly be at us than maps? Like, okay.
The Drake gave Joey a look that was like, bruh, come on.
Yeah, come on. Stop it. Stop the shenanigans. And even like Joey, maybe you go full hands, right? And just steal everything from your own camp. Like if you leave, take all this stuff. Like come in like, hey, I got everything. If y'all take me in right now, we will eat for weeks. Look, I got all the cans. They will have nothing. We have decimated them. Let's take it.
But you lose a lot of leverage though, because then they're like, no. I think they're not going to take you back. You're not welcome here. Good luck trying to go back to them and explaining why you took all the stuff. Like,
at that point, you kind of shoot the hostage. It's like, okay, so
it's like, and they have no stuff, and like I think that would be a bad play. Yeah,
or you come back and you're like, okay, I have all the stuff. You have to take me back. you have to take me back, or I'm flaring out and I'm taking our stuff with us. I'll throw it into the water. I don't know. Like I just think that showing up empty-handed doesn't seem like the point. I think you made a really good point about the map skills, but I just don't think it's something that's easily quantifiable. When you say, here's the thing that I have that you don't have, because I'm sure you could not have convinced Drew. Well, I don't even think Drew and Drake would have known that they were so bad at the map. I think when they started to do it, it started to be a lot more apparent.
Yeah, Chappell. So it's such an interesting moment in the show when then we see Joey comes back, and while he's gone, Joseph is like, I don't know, where is he? He didn't say anything. You think he left? You think he took you think he tried to go jump ship? And they clock him. And they're like, yeah, this is weird. And Eric, and I'd love to talk more about Eric, because I can't believe he made it the whole way through without anybody just losing it on Eric. But Eric is the one who's really going to give Joey the business.
Eric, yeah, he of all people,
Left the company to Eric.
to Eric, yeah. Well, Eric was kind of Joey's way into the camp. You know, like when Joey came in, he latched on to Eric, and
Yes,
so
he was
when
like his protege.
he really was his junior deputy firewood bitch, if you will. You
Yes.
know, and so he's like, hey, I, I got him. I got him. I'll take care of him. They're all looking at Eric like, boy, you barely here. And so
hmm
when
And they're
Joey
like,
messes
good,
up,
somebody to talk to Eric.
yeah. And so now when Joey messes up, Eric's like, oh, it's my duty to discipline him because I'm his father, you know. And so he really lays into Joey, like, what are you doing? And I think Eric just had been at the bottom of the pecking order for so long that it felt good to be above someone else, you know, it's like to have somebody to fuss at. Because normally when Eric starts fussing, the rest of them, they pay him no mind. They're like, hey, we don't care. Joseph has no patience for someone like Eric.
hmm Yeah.
And magically has a ton of patience for people like Eric. Like we haven't talked about Joseph enough. This man is a saint. You know, he's
Yes.
like, I mind my own business. I'm not trying to leave nobody out in the cold. I'm gonna forgive this guy. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. Like Joseph was doing everything that I would not have done.
Joseph just seems like the greatest person ever.
Yeah, he made the swamps of Louisiana sound very appealing. It was like, oh, okay, well, that doesn't sound like too bad of a guy. This is probably a good place to hang out. They
Yeah.
got people like Joseph here. He's great.
Yeah, we see Joseph and Mountain Man bond early on, and we see that ultimately Eric, who's the person who put this team together, feels very much like the de facto leader of that group. But it seems like that the real power lies in Mountain Man and Joseph, and they have this great bond throughout the whole show. I don't think they got in one fight the whole time, Mountain
No.
Man and Joseph. But it's Eric who's always the person who he got mad about the water can back in the first episode. That he gets, upset about other things over the course of the way, but he is not without flaws himself, Eric. They find the big fish at one point.
Yeah. Big old fish. You know, this was another reason why I think people are rooting for this team, right? Because Joseph is saying, no, I have a good feeling. We're going to put positive energy out into the world. We're going to manifest this. We're going to find this. We're going to find us some food because we're out here playing with integrity. We're out here minding our own business. They find a fish. As a matter of fact, I believe it was Eric finds the big old fish.
Eric
And it
finds
was
the big old
alive.
fish, and they find
Yeah.
it, and it's like, look at this. This is amazing. This is the best day of my life. We thought, fresh fish. I'm like, I don't know, like
Fresh fish.
fishy a little bit to me of like, is this like the shrimp traps? Is like production like leaves
why?
like a big, like a big fresh fish, like in the path of the team? I don't know.
Yeah, well, they found it and then they hid it because they're like, okay, we'll come back for it, and then lost it. And I think that was the closest Joseph got to telling Eric to go to hell. Because he's like, because
Yes.
Eric's like, dang, we lost the fish. They're like, no, you lost the fish. You lost the
hmm
fish. It was you. He's like, no, it was a team effort. They're like, no, no, no. You put the fish in a spot and then didn't take the effort to make sure you knew how to get back to the fish. That is a you issue. That is not a we
hmm
issue. They do eventually find the fish. So I
Yeah.
think things worked out a little bit better. But finding food is paramount in this show.
Yeah. There's another moment where then Eric is hungry and he just goes out and then gets a bunch of food for himself and then proceeds to come back to the camp, prepare said food, and then eat it and make like a lot of noise. Like, oh my God, oh, this is good. Eric, like, why?
Yeah.
Like, it's bad enough that you did this. And Mountain Man was pissed.
Wait,
He's like,
is
but
Eric the one who ruined the fire too?
did Eric ruin the fire?
Who was the
I don't
guy who they had found a new way to burn the logs and he didn't like the way they did it, so he messed them up just to redo them? He was like,
I think so.
"Hey,"
That sounds
yeah,
sounds
that sound like
classic
Eric.
Yeah.
It sound like Eric. He came out and saw the log, and I think they had done this. They went and got this long log, and they said, now we got one log that can burn all night as opposed to the smaller ones. Eric came out, saw it, and was like, nah, I don't like this. And then
Mhm.
like purposely messed up the fire to then go struggle to put a fire back together. It was like, I'm doing it my way. Don't
Yeah.
tell me what I can't do. You know, I don't know if I want to live with Eric.
Yeah. And the problem was that Eric, he's eating like all these clams and stuff that he found that morning, and Mountain Man is pissed. And then on the same day, then that Mountain Man goes out and finds the porcupine and ends up bringing it back. And then, it would have been a great moment if Mountain Man said like, no, this
Yeah.
is, you don't get it, Eric. But they would never do that.
Not Delta, not the Delta camp.
Yeah.
The Delta camp is not, they're not built like that. And that's why people were rooting for them
different.
because they were showing that even amongst people who were processing this stressful situation a lot differently, they were all able to come to like an agreeable solution for a lot of their things. They were able to be selfless. I think it was Joseph who said, Joey's acting weird. Eric's acting weird. But this is stress, and people are going to process this and like handle it in different ways, and everybody's not going to handle it the most copacetic way with everybody else. And so we're going to extend grace, and I think everybody appreciates a little grace. And so this was a hard camp to root against.
Yeah, and they really seem like that they had their act together. Delta camp.
Yeah, they were just like a love camp for a while. They just seemed like they just had everything kind of baseline was fine. I think our disaster camp was Charlie. I think Alpha had
Alpha. Yeah.
No, I think Alpha had like a bad go at it, but I think Charlie was the ones that
they had a bad draft.
They can't get right. So, they couldn't get a fire. Oh, Bree leaves them. So they didn't have a fire. Then Bree leaves them down one person. Then my girl Megan, I love her so much because she's like, you know what? I'm positive. I love to keep positivity. We need positive energy all around. I'm glad Bree is gone because she was negative, and we're gonna be positive. We're gonna dance. We're gonna sing. And then the next day she's like, oh my god, I can't. Like it was like it's starting to get to me. It's starting to get the best of me. So yeah, we see them just slowly deteriorate. But I think losing two people very early on, or losing Bree and then not having a fire, it was just like the kiss of death.
Yeah, this the double whammy of Julio and Megan both at the same time. Like, it's tough. Going back to Alpha. Okay, all right. So you talked about how we ended up losing. What was her name?
Tanya.
Tanya. When Tanya goes, we see that Trey has nowhere to go. He ends up doing something which was pretty wild, that I guess he hid all the stuff. He didn't want Bravo to get the stuff. And it's almost like he left behind a note of, you didn't come check on us. So now good luck finding the stuff.
Yeah. He left them a scavenger hunt. I don't think this was too mean-spirited. I think that, for one, he felt very betrayed by this alliance. They literally voted out Bayo under the guise that they would then have an alliance with Bravo. And that did not happen. So I felt like, his feelings were a little hurt, so he wanted to do something to get back at them. But at the same time, he could have disposed of that stuff. He wrapped it all up, put it together, and put it in a spot, and then gave them a note that said, go find it. Good luck. So it could have been worse. I would have thrown that stuff into the river.
Why didn't they go to Bravo after they ended up losing Zach?
I don't think they knew about the Zach loss. So they knew about Bayo.
But Trey and Tanya knew that, like, why don't they go to...
why didn't they leave?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think at that point, I don't know if they had it in them. I just don't think they had it in them. I think that, Tanya and Trey were like, they were just like a marriage of convenience. Like,
I was shipping them also. I was shipping Trey and Tanya.
Yeah. I'm just like, in my heart, they're having Thanksgiving dinner together this year. Like that's how I believed it. Like, I don't know about a ship, but the way they were talking about each other, like, this is a family, this is a pair that I would love to see on The Amazing Race. Like, I put them on other shows together because it was fun to watch them. But yeah, I just think they didn't have it in them. I think that at that point, they're like, we have to conserve calories and stuff. Because what if they did go to Bravo and Bravo turned them away? Now it's like, now we wasted an entire day traveling over here to these jerks.
Can two people go and say, hey, let's merge? Or
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you probably, this is how you would have to do it. You send Trey first. And Trey's like, hey, I'm thinking about joining your camp. But if I come, it's sort of a package deal with Tanya. And then they say no, like Trey comes back. You can't just like maybe like give up your camp.
Yeah, I think that if you're like going to the Charlie camp, you come in there and you look around, you like, because we saw it, you look around and go, "Ooh, this is ghetto. This is ghetto. Y'all don't have nothing. Jesus Lord, it's okay." And then they say, "Well, what's going on?" You're like, "Well, y'all's camp is depleted.
Yeah.
Come to our camp. We have a nice setup. We got the fire going. Because they did." Tanya and Trey were snug. They were in there good. Again, had she not gotten sick, I think they were there the whole time. that the fire started to go out, but I think I was confident they would probably be able to get it back to life. But I think that if you go to somebody who needs you, then it's like, okay, we can't really afford to not have fire, because Charlie would have taken them in
Yeah.
like instantly. But
Right.
Alpha and Charlie were so far away from each other that there was no point where they would have ever been able to touch.
How about when Charlie went to go visit Delta, and they were like, "Oh, we just wanted to check out what's going on over here." Like, oh my god,
I said, this
their
is
camp
nice.
is so much better than ours.
Oh my god,
We have nothing.
Crown moldings in here, everything. This is oh my god. So it's oh, this whole thing, we just threw this camp together in like a day or so. Like, so like, oh, well, how's y'all's camp? I mean, we got like fire. Oh, y'all have fire? Really?
Yeah.
How'd y'all get it going? Like, I mean, well, we don't have fire per se. We had fire for like a couple hours.
That was the inciting incident that Bree's like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, Bree saw enough. She's
Not
like,
staying.
This is ghetto in here. White refrigerators. Let me get out of here. Find your home. Put your shoes on, girl. It got real. She was like, I got to go. Left them people high and dry.
Yeah. This is a question from Melissa in the chat who asks, hey, what does Outlast bring that some of these other survival shows aren't bringing?
That's a great question.
What does this have over Alone, Naked and Afraid?
Well, that's the thing. I don't really know those shows very well. Like, I've seen Naked and Afraid XXL, but I've never seen like Naked and Afraid proper. Yeah. I know obviously this show has closed, but I also think that like this show, knowing that it's a competition, I don't think Naked and Afraid is a competition, right? It's like you just go out there.
I do think that Naked and Afraid XXL is, there are competition elements to it.
Yeah, but there's not like a one final winner, is there? Like where you got to make it to like the end of the race. I feel like you just stick it out until they come get you, right? There's no like conclusion.
Yeah, there's like a point. You have a drop point, I think, that you have to get to also on that. I would say that the element that probably distinguishes Outlast from these other shows is that I do think that the sabotage element is something that's baked into it. So there is like, okay, can you survive? Can you, outlast like the physical adversity, but also what are you willing to do? Like, I do not think that those shows have a big cash prize. Was the prize $1 million in season 1?
I believe so. And I think in season 1, they leaned into the idea that there are no rules out here. And they kept saying that because I knew they knew they were about to give us a show with Jill, right? They knew that we were going to see Jill take a sleeping bag and make everybody cry. And so because of that, we thought like, okay, you could do anything it takes. She joked about burning down a camp, and we were sitting here like, well, could you? Like, would you get in trouble if you burned down someone's camp? We saw Bayo go and take cans from people. There are no rules. So this season, they didn't really
there are some rules.
Okay,
and
what are the rules?
So Andy Denhart had a interview with Mike O'Dare, which I want to give his job title is on the show.
Jason Bateman's friend.
Yeah, Jason Bateman's
He's
collaborator. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So but they asked about the executive producer about some of the things that you can and that you can't do. Andy Denhart asked, but obviously there are rules, right? You can't sink a hatchet into someone's thigh just to get them out of the game. And Mike O'Dare says that's a good question. When we get everybody out there, where they're meeting each other, sizing each other up, we say that you still are in the United States of America. So if you were physically harmful to somebody, to do murder, those kinds of things are off the table. This is not a true Hunger Games scenario or Lord of the Flies. The items that we give them technically belong to us, production. So if they want to take something, they can do that. It's not really their property. They didn't purchase it.
Yeah.
So how do you get that thing back if they take it from you? If you want to grab it out of somebody's hand, you can. But if the person gets into a physical altercation, we are just documenting the process. The rules, it's blurry, they say, by design. Like, let's see how you figure this out.
It's like you can steal, but can you protect yourself? It's like if you like Bayo comes over and snatches those cans, right? Now, Zach, the MMA fighter, is probably like, I'm gonna kick Bayo's ass. And that's against the rules. You cannot kick his Bio's ass. But I think that's why Bio's camp was so like appalled by it, was that now that you've opened that can of worms, who knows what they're going to do to get back at us? They can come here in the middle of the night and just steal all our stuff. Or maybe while we're gone foraging, they come and burn it to the ground. Because as long as we don't touch them, seemingly, we're not breaking any rules. Like, obviously, production is probably like, hey, don't set our stuff aflame. So they might have rules about their actual property. But as far as like who's using it, it looks like you can just take whatever. They were going to take that boat. You know what I'm saying? Like they were like, oh, if we get to the boat first, it's fair game. Now, if I show up tomorrow night and I take your tarp while y'all sleep, what you gonna do? You gonna fight me? So I think at that point it's a slippery slope, and we could see it get a lot dirtier. However, it hasn't gotten to that point yet, because I think it's kind of like a Cold War. Everybody knows you can take it there, but who really wants to do that in the Alaskan wilderness?
Yeah. Okay. The end of the game, they have this race. But it's not just a race. That ends with a fire-making challenge. People love a fire-making challenge.
We love a fire-making challenge. Yeah. They gave them that bow and then the little stick. And they say, okay, rub the stick together, make a fire. We've seen people do that on Survivor. We've seen people do that on other shows as well. This was going to be the thing that makes or break this thing. Because if you get through the race, that's one thing. But you still have to have primitive survival skills. And making a fire is key. And I think that we saw Drew and Drake figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an exciting end. It really was. I thought they edited it well between the two teams. And, if that fire goes out, you sort of like, it's tough, especially if you burned a bunch of the supplies. They do it. Drew and Drake, they win. I thought Drake, I thought this was wild. They just dropped the money out there. They're pretending to talk on the money phone. Drake says, get the red panties out.
Get the red panties. We rich, baby. Get your red panties out.
I don't think they cost that much. I think you can buy them.
But what did that mean though? Like it was like they're supposed to be expensive?
I guess so.
Like, get the red panties out. Red panties.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And then who was he talking to? Drake?
This is his wife.
Talking to Drew? Drew, get your red panties out.
No, talking to the wife. I thought that the most bro thing happened though between Drew and Drake. It's like day 28, day 29. They're getting ready to go on the trek together, and Drew says to Drake, "Hey, what was your wife's name again?"
Yeah. Like, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I haven't mentioned her. Yeah, we haven't said nothing about her. Meanwhile, on the Delta camp, we got Joey like, oh, my wife is the whole reason I'm here, and the whole thing that I made, everything that happened. And that was the other thing about
just
Joey.
Two guys, like 29 days. Wife's name didn't really come up.
Y'all have seen each other naked too many times for you to not have been talking about your personal life. But yeah, on the flip side, Joey had told us his whole story where he needed this for his family and he really needed the money. And I think that's why Joey to me was more like a compelling character, because he was willing to do cutthroat things like as a gamer, but also because we knew a little bit more about what he was playing for. Whereas like with Drew and Drake, we got very surface level edits for them.
Sure. Chappell, producers call you up. Hey, what do you want to tweak for season 3?
Okay. Well, for one, I want them competing for stuff more often. Like, I liked the idea that they were racing for the boat, right? Like, that was kind of fun. It was suspenseful. We got to see Joseph would come out on top of that race and save his own boat. But I like the idea that it was like, once we dropped the boat out there, it became a race, because by getting one boat, you can now go get my boat as well. You could come take both of them before I get there. So I like that. I like that they gave them the crates to make the pallet to make the.
Would you like to see
raft.
One person from each team go on a journey, and then they have a chance to sabotage the other person?
Yeah, I guess so. And that kind of reminds me of the boat thing too, right? Where they have to somebody has to go out into the water. Like, we don't know. Like, pick your champion, put them on their raft and let them go and see what happens. I like that. I like seeing them interact a little bit more. I wish their camps were closer together, because I think that Alpha would have benefited by being closer to Charlie, and Delta and Bravo would have been interested to be closer together as well. But because of where they're situated, once Charlie started to get decimated, I was thinking, oh, all y'all got to do is get to Alpha. If y'all get to Alpha, they're down to their last 2. If Bree makes it to Alpha, bet, like they could use an extra hand.
Yeah.
They're so far away that she's stuck at Bravo.
Yeah. I agree with everything you're saying. I feel like more interactions between the team. Like I think it was a little too easy for teams that, hey, we're just minding our own business. You had like that one interaction early on between Alpha and Bravo, and we were like, we're so back. And then that ultimately didn't lead to anything. And so I just felt like that, you had basically Charlie who just sort of petered out, and then Alpha who kind of just petered out, and you sort of had like these bigger teams that were just on the opposite side of the river from each other. And especially Delta was like, okay, well, we're not even going to pay attention to them. So there definitely was conflict this season, but not as much like team to team conflict.
Right. I also think you got to put a team limit on the amount of people you can have in. 5 was cute or whatever, it worked this time, but I think you got to have 4. And the reason I say that is because I think it gives it more opportunity for conflict. By taking in a 5th person, Delta Camp was able to get Joey without losing anybody. Bravo was able to do the same exact thing with Bree. They just took her in. There's no conflict there. It's just leaving Alpha and whatever the other camp was, I don't remember. Charlie just out to dry. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but I would much rather see Bree forced to go and work her way in with Alpha. It gives them more life in the game, and then that gives us more characters to deal with. I think that by like just taking in a 5th person, you eliminate almost 2 different options for any viable, competition at the end. So I think you kind of have to limit it at some point.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on Outlast season 2?
So much, like now that we're thinking about like just things that you could tweak for the game, definitely want to put some limits on there. Definitely want to give them more things to compete for. Personally, these people who say they have certain skills, I would love to see the skills at play. Like, okay, you say I'm a bow hunter. I like to see the people shoot with the bow. The people who cannot do it, we find out very quickly. But I liked when I think Tina, when she found that root because all constipated, all backed up. It was cool because she said, "This is what I do. I know the herbal medicines out here." So it was fun to kind of see her in her element. I wish that we got to see more of that. More of the like, okay, this is my superpower. Watch me work. So I like that a lot. I really like this show. I think it's not predictable at all. I think from episode 1, you could have probably foresaw Drew and Drake as the winners, but not the way that they ended up winning, right? Where it's just the 2 of them versus the world. I just don't think that anybody episode 1 came in and thought those are our 2 winners, and you can't tell me different. I think that the physical aspect is fun to watch because sometimes you could be the biggest, baddest person there and you just get sick and you don't make it. But I think you got to give them more stuff to do. Just sitting there, the boredom is probably part of the game. But I think that giving them some tasks, making them spend a little bit more calories, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for me.
Okay. Chappell, next time on Nothing But Netflix, you got to figure out what to do. Looking ahead, I do want to talk about the Mr. McMahon documentary that's coming out on September 25th. Okay. That's around the corner, but that's probably 2 weeks away for us. There's a movie called Uglies. Have you seen this?
I saw
a futuristic society divided into uglies and pretties, where cosmetic surgery is mandatory. Choosing to be yourself is the ultimate form of rebellion. That's wild.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I am as an ugly. I am very I'm interested to see okay, you made a movie about me. Okay, let's see it.
Very rude.
But
Very
it didn't
rude.
Jump out to me as something that I had to watch.
Yeah.
I've heard Perfect Couple was funny.
Perfect Couple?
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's the first.
I think we might be a little late on that. I feel like
I definitely think we are.
Still number 1 on Netflix. So let's see. We of course listen to the listeners in terms of what they want us to cover or not cover.
Yeah. So give us the feedback. Let us know. Because I've been seeing people talk about chaos and stuff like that, but we really want to be on the cutting edge of whatever is dropping on Netflix. So if you see something coming our way that's coming out this week potentially, or toward the end of the week, let us know. So that
or even on other streaming sites. We don't love to do that, but we'll do it.
Oh yeah, this is Nothing But Netflix with an asterisk. Sometimes we delve into other things as well. Sam Moore is telling us that Uglies has 22% on the Rotten Tomatoes. So I mean,
not great. But that's could be good for us. Could be good for
probably
podcast.
Fun to talk about. Fun to talk about.
Okay. All right. Chappell, what's coming up for you?
I don't know. Still hanging out, talking about Big Brother with you with every chance I get. So if you're not watching Big Brother 26, what are you doing? It's been a great season. Check it out. Check out the slop. Rob and I, for the patrons, are talking about the sloppy things on Big Brother every week. So that's always a good time. And then Sasha and I are wrapping up the Below Deck podcasting in the next couple of weeks. We got like 2 more episodes of this season of Below Deck, man. It's been a fun time. Ellie from this season of Below Deck has found me on Twitter talking shit about her. And so that was a fun find. Yeah, she found the podcast. That was great. She caught me talking about it. And so check that
That'll
out.
happen.
Hey, listen, I'd rather her listen than not listen. So,
Yeah.
I said what I said. So check that out as well. The Below Deck Med coverage with me and Sasha. The draft is Monday. We'll be talking about Survivor very soon. And so we have to pick teams. So I'll be doing that. And then over on Recap Kickback, you got me and Mari talking about various things. We got talking about Netflix movie this time. We're talking about Rebel Ridge on Netflix. So if you're a Nothing But Netflix listener, hey, that's a good crossover for you over there. We're talking about Rebel Ridge, and we got other stuff coming your way too. So check that out on the Recap Kickback podcast at recapkickback.com.
All right, we've got so much Survivor coming your way next week, including the draft and much more. So make sure you're locked in. Busy week coming up here on RHAP. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.